Communication 101, and I'm Tricia Carr. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and thank you so much for loving animals, for loving nature, and for wanting to explore the truth of our unification in the perspective of animals and nature, because that's the kind of everything that is on my heart. I love to help us humans as well, but I think that as a planet, for us to really ascend, we need to work together with Mother Earth, with Gaia, with nature, with animals. And so I like working from both perspectives. And so here we go, Animal Communication 101. Okay, so animal communication is telepathy between species, whether it is the like species or different species. It's vibrational communication, non-physical vibrational communication. So it is really just subtle vibrational language. When all of this work that we're doing, and all of us who are sensitive, whether we're empaths, highly sensitive people, just psychic in general, intuitive, what we really are is we are more adept, we are more talented, naturally have a natural propensity for absorbing and perceiving vibrational or non-physical language or content information. Okay, so animals do that primarily, and animals do use physical communication as well. And of course, this is extremely generalized because there are many different species of animals, many different perspectives inside the animal kingdom and the nature kingdom. But we're going to be very general because humans actually, we do have a sort of more specified reality, or the way that we function in this planet is actually more distinctive than the rest of nature and animals. So we're just going to kind of, all right. Okay, so it is humans' first language. As babies, we come into this plane, obviously we don't have any communication skills, that we don't have verbal skills, we don't even have physical skills very well, physical communication skills. That's something that comes with the development of the mental body and just adapting to the group. Parents communicate with their babies non-physically, and I think that we're taught that we memorize their cries or something like that, but really a mother feels her baby's needs, and it can get what really separates us from being able to perform psychic or telepathic communication, whether it's with animals or people, past or present, is usually fear, something that is a departure from love. Love is the vibration that helps it to flow really successfully. So when a mother is worried that her baby is sick, she feels like she doesn't understand what her baby needs, and she starts to panic, okay? Another example is when we are first falling in love. I think that our telepathy, Barnabas is my kitty, and he's trying to actually get in on the picture, but he's behind the camera, and I'm afraid he's going to knock it over, but he thinks that he's participating. Do you see that shaking? That's because he's scratching himself right now. So hopefully he'll just get behind the camera, in front of the camera. When we're first falling in love, because this is another very primal kind of urge, it's something that's really important to us, we have a heightened sense of telepathy. It's really important for us to either hasten the bond or dissolve the bond, because it's such a fragile state. That's Barnabas scratching again. So when we're in love, the kind of quintessential phrase that we have about how wonderful it is that we're falling in love is we finish each other's sentences, right? And if you have a partner or a spouse, or just anyone that you are in a life partnership with, then you can walk in the room and you know what mood they're in before they even look at you. And that's not just for us sensitive people. I ask that of anyone who's in a partnership, and if they have any kind of self-awareness, if their heart chakra is open at all, they're like, oh yeah, of course. So we all communicate with telepathy all the time, and we just do it to varying degrees of awareness or consciousness. Okay, so like I said, it does function like any other psychic communication, and it falls under the large grouping of psychic functions. Now, I think the way that we can kind of look at it in a more scientific way, we can quantize it just a little bit, because we have brain waves, we have delta, theta, alpha, beta, And then the fastest documented brainwave is called gamma. And they've actually done some studies where they had some Buddhist monks meditate, and then they took some novice meditators. They just taught them to meditate just a little bit. And they measured the brain waves, and they found that when they got into a deep meditative state, they actually started to emit gamma brain waves, and associated with that gamma brainwave state is being able to feel connected, to be able to kind of tap into a shared signal. So that's what we are all actually doing as we're developing our intuitive gifts. We're getting really comfortable, we're getting really skilled at being able to go neutral, relax so much that we become neutral, and we can just tap into that shared signal. So animals live there for the most part. They do, and we're going to get into some of the specificities of how they function with their communication. So let me tell you how animals communicate. Okay, so telepathy is their primary language. They do, like, as we know, use some body language, they use scent and all that kind of stuff, definitely, of course. But if you just look at like our domestic animals, like dogs and cats, you love your cat and you can see that your cat is smiling, of course. And there's one right behind me right now. And you can see his expression. But as compared to humans, like how many muscles we have, how much we depend on our face to express something is exponentially more than, say, a dog or a cat. Certainly more, I don't know, I would think more than a beetle, a little bug. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I just can't see that well into the beetle's face. So it's just something, and they don't develop as much language as we do because of that, because they don't need it. They do learn our language, and they adapt to our language, and they become more expressive vocally and physically because they're adapting to us. And they actually enjoy it, by the way. Okay, so animals, therefore, they do hear our thoughts. They are just picking them up all the time. Now, that they don't hear all of them. And this is key in your relationship with your own animals, your animal family. We have, as humans, we have 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts every single day, okay? So an animal can't possibly, your cat cannot be listening to all of those because they would be exhausted. So they do hear some, they pay attention to some. It's kind of like they're overhearing, just incidentally. My husband is in the house right now, he's on the other side of the house. I can hear him talking to his colleagues in there, but I'm not listening, I could listen, but there's no point. That conversation doesn't involve me. Now, if he called out my name, then I would pay attention. And so our animals, very much the same, except that it's basically, we're always talking, pretty much, and they can always listen to us. So what's good to know about that, to note about that, is if there's going to be some changes in the household, always tell your animal. Sit down and you can say it out loud, or you can say it in your mind, but explain to them what's going to happen. Because they may have been picking up parts of it, and since they don't know the whole story, they can get a little stressed out. So just tip one. Now, the way that they communicate, the way that telepathy works, you guys are going to get this because you're all probably functioning in some sort of psychic realm, psychic communication. Animals send us pictures, and they're kind of like snapshots, like 2 to 3 seconds, or just a snapshot. As I'm a medium, so it's very similar to what I get from spirit. And although somehow with animals, it feels different. It's a slightly different quality, but that's similar in that it is a picture. Get a lot of pictures, and they send that to one another. Emotions, just again, like clairsentience. And then they also can kind of give us a feeling of their physical senses. With animals, we do remote viewing. And remote viewing is when I'm in a session working with an animal, I ask them if I can see through their eyes. And this is something that an animal communicator does, particularly if the animal is lost. It's just the hardest kind of case ever. Because when we're working with a lost animal, that's kind of the main thing we can do. If the animal's lost, we're talking to the animal, so it's a little difficult because they're lost, I guess they could be hiding, and that's helpful, but if they're lost, and they don't know how to get home. So if we see through their eyes, can see through their eyes as an animal communicator, and the cat is like showing me, I'm next to a white porch and then there's a street sign, and it's like, okay, that doesn't really give me a lot of information, but we keep working at it, and usually we get the animal home. The other thing that we receive, the communication we receive from animals, it actually translates into what seems like speech, like a clairaudient kind of speech. And again, that's just the nature of translating subtle vibrational language. It's animals do, like I say, adapt to our language and understand our language, and they actually can. Well, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyway, yes, speech. It sounds like sometimes when I actually dictate a whole speech, and sometimes it's quite eloquent. It is coming through my filter, so I'm going to be translating that vibration into speech, word, understanding that's basically already a part of me. Okay, body scan. This is another thing that we do in animal communication session. It's kind of like the remote viewing, but it's more remote feeling. It's a remote sentience. So when I'm working with an animal, I just ask them if I can feel their body as though it is my own. And so if it's a cat, I kind of like scan my own body, and I imagine, and I see if there's ears, and then I just go all the way down. And what will happen is I'll get just kind of like a ping. And then if I get a ping, let's say it's in the right ear, then I'll just stay there for a second and see if I can feel what it feels like. And if I'm not quite getting a defined feeling, then I'll just ask the animal, what's going on there? What does that feel like? And have them, try to tell me a little more with kind of what seems like speech again. And, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a vet. So and neither is the animal, neither is the cat. So we're not going to get like, I have kidney cancer. A cat's not going to know that. I wouldn't know that about my body. But I can get that there's some kind of, I can get what the feeling is of it and the symptom is of it. All right, so that takes me to my next part, my next section, that it is direct communication. An animal communicator connects directly with the animal to receive their perspective, as opposed to receiving information from angels or other guides. Okay, so it's connecting directly to them. So we wouldn't get some kind of information about something that is going to happen any more than what the animal thinks is going to happen. It's more person to person, well, animal to animal. 1 second, sip. And the distinction is there that if you were to become a professional animal communicator, it's good for, your clients don't really understand how this works, psychic work or intuitive work, unless they, do the kind of work themselves or are highly intuitive, kind of practice it. Even if they're really intuitive, if they aren't sort of doing it intentionally with a particular end, then they may not understand how this works. So one time I had a client, and I spoke with her dogs. It was a wonderful session, learned a lot. And then about 2 weeks later, she emailed me, and I don't mean this to be a negative case, but this is how I maybe should have explained something better to this client. 2 weeks later, she emailed me and she said, "Oh my goodness, my dogs got some kind of skin infection on their face," and she was like, "How come you couldn't see that was coming?" And well, the answer is because your dogs hadn't contracted it yet, and I was speaking directly with the dogs, and the dogs didn't know they were going to get it, because if they had known they were going to get it, they probably would have avoided it. So you see what I mean? Like, she's just assuming that kind of basic thing that people, a lot of skeptics are like, "Oh, you're a psychic? Oh, what am I going to do tomorrow?" That kind of thing. Even when someone is being silly as a skeptic, they really just don't have any idea how this works. And so, good to know that we're communicating directly with the animal. That is the intention. There are some exceptions to that. So sometimes higher guidance does, when I'm in a session, we do have angels and guides standing around, and they're actually helping us to connect. They're helping us just like you would in any other conversation between two physical humans. Your guides and your angels are there, and so they might be helping us to communicate with one another and counseling us subtly. And then the exception to when we're always connecting directly with the animal, every now and again, we're kind of guided to shift gears and then start listening to higher guidance. And sometimes that happens where I'm, like an angel or a guide steps up and says, hey, you know what, you guys need to listen to me, including the animal. Or sometimes when I'm working with an animal, their guides will step forward and say, we want to have a more active relationship with this animal. And so then we turn to the guides and start to connect with their guides and help the animal to connect with the guides. It's really beautiful. Okay, I like to examine what skeptics say, because that just helps us to be more deeply informed. So what skeptics say to counter that animal communicators are, they say that animal communicators are actually reading the person. So I think that if that counter that critique, it's unfortunately, I don't think that it's any less amazing that we would be reading a person. It's not any less miraculous or psychic. To me, that's unfortunate, because I think that all they're doing there then is diminishing an animal. You know what I mean? Like saying animals aren't capable of having a rich, full life. And that they don't have the same consciousness, or that they're not as conscious as we are. And that's unfortunate. The answer to skeptics is that, sweetheart, please don't step on my equipment. Delilah now is trying to get on it. Come around this way, honey. This is where the camera is. I know. Yeah, they want to see how pretty you are. Okay, so the answer to skeptics is that during a session, an animal communicator receives verifiable information that the animal's human didn't even know. So that's how we can, that's one proof that we're actually communicating with the animal, because we will bring forth information that only the animal knows, or that the animal's human didn't know until the animal told us. And of course, that could be anything from physical symptoms, or, do you see Delilah now? No, not yet. Physical stuff, or, where they've hidden something. I don't, the list can go on and on. So that's a counter to it. And another thing that skeptics say, that animal communicators are picking up other physical and nonverbal cues, like body language and all that kind of stuff. Well, most animal communicators, or, well, I shouldn't say most, because I don't know all of them, but at least the way I do it, and many that I know, is that we actually do the session remote. So I get information about the animal, a photo, and just some very basics, like how old they are and their name, so that I can tap into their vibration, just the same way that we do when we're doing this kind of stuff. We're doing readings, some very basic stuff. And then I have a whole session with the animal without the human being present at all. And we get verifiable information, and then we speak later on the phone and clarify the information and continue to develop the session. Okay, and again, if you guys are commenting, I apologize. I will go back later after the thing, but I just want to get through the actual class plan. And like I say, at the end, we can ask questions or we can practice reading. You gonna come and see us, Lila? Okay. So, how animals and humans are alike. Animals have access to the full emotional spectrum. They have all of the emotions, maybe more, who knows, that we experience. Animals have very similar basic needs from primal to actualized. So if you're familiar with, well, first of all, they have the same chakra system that we have. So you can just think about it as that. I'm an energy healer as well. So I do energy healing with the animals. And, you can go through, and their chakras are relatively in the same, places in their body, from, root to crown. And, particularly mammals, we have very, very similar systems. So, Lila, you going to knock it over? She's going to knock over the camera. Very similar physical systems. So all of the minor chakras are, they have those as well. When we're getting to something like insects, slightly different, but they still have chakras, and they have the same kind of needs of, like that Abraham Maslow's pyramid of actualization. They have their basic needs, their primal needs, and then they have their needs to self-actualize and have life purpose. Animals do develop mentally, spiritually, and physically in each lifetime. Animals, they develop a personality in each lifetime, just like humans. They come in with intentions and life contracts and all that kind of stuff. They reincarnate, of course. Animals, in my experience, we've lived countless lives. I think that from the perspective that we are living currently, we generally remember, animals alike, and we remember, or what seem to be most significant are the lives that are more similar to the one that we're living now. So I might remember my human lives more, and I might even remember, let's say maybe I remember more lives that are where I'm a female, because I have some of those similar contracts going on. I might remember more lives as a woman than I do as a man. And animals that I speak with, they remember lives that are usually similar to the ones that they're living, or express a similar contract. Sorry, my cats are just being silly. They're so excited about this class right now. Sometimes I had one session, I had a little Boston Terrier, a little small doggy, and he showed me a life, as I recall, where he was a wolf and of a Native American village or tribe. So canine, but he was kind of showing me the contrast of something that he was working on, and what he was working on had wholly to do with love, like in devotion, and so he carried it through that life into this one and was showing me. And I remember actually asking him, like, well, that's interesting. You're showing me such a different body type. It's such a different kind of canine. And he's like, yeah, I'm just trying it on. Isn't that cool? I get to live inside now, and I get to fit in small spaces. So yeah, he wanted to show that off. Okay. Animals, this is a big one. Animals are closer to divinity than are humans, meaning they have a better memory of eternity. As humans, we sort of have a more unique journey in that we more thoroughly forget our eternal nature. And that's because we want to have, as a human, we're having a richer experience of contrast, of a deeper dynamic journey of having completely forgotten to remembering. And recently I was channeling, and this being ended it by saying, how exquisite is the moment that your lover went from not knowing you to knowing you. And so that's that deep contrast that humans experience. Animals definitely experience contrast, and definitely, like I say, develop spiritually. Young animals, sometimes when I'm working with a young animal, often if it's we talk about building their relationship with their guides. And sometimes they're kind of like, I'll ask them about them, and they're like, oh yeah, I've kind of seen them around. Yeah, oh yeah, like they haven't really been paying attention to them. So they have the same kind of explorations that we do, although it's just easier. An animal's not going to be like, what do you mean a guide? I don't believe in that. Yeah, that's just less likely going to happen. I mean, I guess it's possible, but that's something that more, that happens with humans. Animals, it's just kind of like, it's very easy, and of course they still have choice to develop themselves spiritually or not. They have free will as well. Animals have a karmic journey, and as I was saying, that younger animals often need to build a relationship with their guides. They do experience time the same way that we do for the most part. And what I mean by that is, well, I like to say they don't have to catch trains. And, they know they feel the passing of the time. They know about the rotation. They obviously see the sun down and sun up, but they don't care about 4:52. That's just like not in their purview. We actually started to be that specific about time, literally when we started taking trains. And that was because the trains had to run on a particular schedule, and you had to be there before the train left. Before that, we were, you showed up for work, and it was probably some 15 to 30 minute window, and no one really ever noticed. Excuse me, sip of water. So animals are still there. If I'm going to, back to earlier when I said to let your animal know about if there are changes in the home, I also because I'm very close with my animals, I let them know when I'm going to leave the house, and I say goodbye. Hey, I'm going to go out for a little while. And I kind of imagine if it's a few hours or if it's after dark or something. I let them know, because if you just think if you had your spouse, if you're really close to your partner, and you just walked out of the house, you'd be like, where the heck did he go? That's so weird. He just walked out. And you'd be like, when's he coming back? That's strange. Same thing with your animals if you're very close to them. On the other hand, if you're kind of like, I don't know, like you have a more casual relationship with your animals, which again, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. Some animals prefer that. That's just like with something, let's say teenagers, siblings growing up in a house. You're probably not going to go tell your teenage brother every time you leave the house. He'd be like, "Get out of here, weirdo," So that it's a very similar dynamic. But if you're very close to them and they're always wanting to be with you, tell them when you're going to go. It makes a big difference. Sometimes my husband kind of forgets to tell one of my cats who loves him desperately, and he'll start walking around the house crying and yowling, like, "Where is he?" And I just tell him, I'm like, Daddy's going to be home in a couple of hours, and then he'll totally relax. All right. Animals do have ego. Animals aren't perfect. Nobody's perfect. Animals have free will choice. Some of them are better. If we're going to make judgment of good and evil, some of them are better than others, nicer than others. Some of them make choices that are not. They have the ability to make a choice that is not better for the greater good. They have the choice. They have the option. However, back to the point of them remembering eternity and just understanding divinity better, they don't do that. They just generally don't do that as much as to the depth that humans do, because humans do that out of complete unconsciousness. Humans do that out of not realizing that, hey, if I do this to my neighbor, if I rob them of some kind of livelihood, that will affect me. Animals do see that because they feel that flow a little better than us, but they can still be selfish. They can be anything like that. They have ego. It just doesn't develop to the huge state that ours does, because we do things like the ego is supposed to just keep us alive physically. That's its good function. That's what it's meant to do. But then we tack on all kinds of other things onto that ego. That's how it gets large. Meaning, like, if your parent doesn't reflect your love back to you perfectly, then we tack onto there that if I sing a song and my mother doesn't appreciate it, then I need to not sing because then I could die. Like, literally, that's the kind of train of thought that and when we're younger kind of helps our ego to build much larger. Animals don't do it quite that much. But then we do see how animals they get mental illnesses and neuroses and stuff like that because of, often because they're responding to some extreme condition. Animals that are, abused or something like that, they can have a hard time later. Animals can be very anxious. All of they have anxiety disorder. It's, we're not that different. I mean, there are a lot of similarities, and I'm going to be talking about how we're different too, because that's important to understand. And also, to do it along those lines, animals aren't perfect or holy. They're just who's. They're just a who like us. Yeah. All right. So how animals and humans are different. Although animals have the same emotional spectrum as humans, or they have access to it, they do have their own perspective. It's not exactly like ours, and that's important to know. Again, if you were to do this professionally, because a lot of our clients don't quite grasp that. A lot of you might kind of grasp that naturally, but here's an example. I had a client I was working with trying to find a lost cat. And I had an idea of where she was, and we had really gotten a good idea. She had shown me and taken me down to where she was, the area that she is. And I was telling her human, put signs up in that area and go look in that area. And so he did a little bit and kind of whatever. Honestly, he kind of half-assed it. And then the next time he was like frustrated, and he's like, "Can't you just tell her to come out at 2 and I'll pick her up?" I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. That's not really, again, that's not in her purview. She doesn't, and anyway, what I'm about to talk about in a moment is she's in her primal nature. She's terrified. She doesn't kind of remember how to be available to you at this, where she is. She's lost and she's terrified. So different perspective is important to know, to mind. So, and how this different perspective kind of, how it departs in its difference. First, we would say it departs because they do have that closer connection to divinity. So that's different than the human perspective. And then you can just say it differs, it continues to differ their perspective or specify for the animal by species, by the own culture, meaning like their family culture or the ecosystem that they're in, and then of course by the individual. So they have their individual perspective just like we do. Animals are more present than humans, but they still do suffer from past events and even their past lives, just like us. They just generally speaking, they aren't sitting around overthinking about past events, but they could still be responding. And some of that response that they could still be experiencing has to do with how it has been encoded in their brains, literally. And so it's more about, rather than thinking about all of the details like we would, they might be feeling some of the similar emotions from that past event. And honestly, they just need similar kind of healing that we do. And they respond to healing really quickly. If we're doing some kind of shadow work or spiritual work or energy work, they respond to it really well because they, it makes a lot of sense to them. It's very natural to them. Animals, their ego development is not as complex as humans, as I was saying earlier. I already said that. Their primal nature engagement differs from humans. So primal nature, we all engage in primal nature, the fight or flight kind of thing. Animals, again, this is very general, for the most part, can more quickly access that than humans. And I think that is something that that a lot of people think, if they were to observe it, they think it's unconscious, but it's not really that. Because when in primal nature or just in like wild nature, there's no judgment. So if you ever watch a nature program and you see a cheetah chasing a gazelle, and it's lovely because you're getting to see how these animals' bodies work. And the cheetah's chasing down the gazelle and it's in slow motion, and then like, who are you rooting for? Because if you know this about cheetahs, that they expend so much energy when they sprint like that if they aren't able to get their prey, they can't build up that energy again for another couple of days. Sometimes it puts their health, it puts their life at risk if they actually can't catch the prey after a big sprint like that. Sometimes they could die because they don't have enough sustenance. They don't have a meal, and then they can't build up the strength to be able to do that chase again. Maybe they've done it more than once. But then of course, they catch the gazelle and you see the little gazelles and you get the neck, and then, oh no, okay. There's no judgment there. So that's existing in the primal nature. When animals, our domesticated animals, adapt to us, they come up and they live in this kind of higher chakra, higher dimensional space. That doesn't mean that it's a lesser quality. From heaven's perspective, there's no judgment at all. That it's all just choices that we're making. So you can think about primal nature kind of being like Gaia, how Gaia, Mother Earth, has a very similar inner energy signature as spirit realm. So it's kind of like those extreme realms. You're just gonna have to sit with it. I know that feels weird sometimes to some people. Okay, so primal nature versus domesticity. When we domesticize an animal, we are converting them to this experience, like I was saying, to this this experience of not having to kill for food, for example, just one example, or to forage. So it sort of takes us up that in that self-actualization pyramid, or the chakra system, if you will. And that's not to say that the wild animals, they still can be very spiritually minded and have very high consciousness, but it's just a little bit different in how it expresses in the incarnate life. That's kind of something, a class on its own. Hopefully you're getting a good overview of that. So, and then in other ways that we see that animals, digress. Animal development. So they do develop mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and it's relative to their lifespan. So cats live 15 to 20 years, if we're lucky. So when you first get a kitten, he's a little baby, and they see you as your mommy and the baby. And then, at like 3 years, they're kind of like an 18-year-old. And then at, say 9 years, they're kind of like a 30-year-old. and so on and so on. And it kind of, averages out in the middle. But if you have a cat who's like 18 years old, that's like an 80-year-old relative to an 80-year-old person. And they probably have a lot of wisdom, and they probably have a lot of spiritual advice. It's really cool. So, and mentally too. So they physically obviously developing at a faster rate than we are. And then they're mentally developing faster too. And it's all relative to their bodies, to the kind of incarnation that they are. But that's pretty cool. And then we also do, like, I have a 3-year-old kitten, and she's like one of the oldest souls I've ever met. And I have an 18-year-old friend who's one of the oldest souls I've ever met. Like, those two should, go and just talk all day long. Animals have, again, that's how we're different and how we're the same. Animals are better with their death experience, very generally speaking, because they do remember eternity better. So it's kind of like, this is a day. It's a bad day. It's one of the days where my body hurts. They have that ego and that primal nature, the survival instinct that would try to keep them alive. But when they realize when it's time, they're usually, how we observe them, it seems like they're better at it. They're usually better at it than humans. And not all the time. Sometimes they fight it just like humans do. Sometimes, they can go through the same stuff. And as we know, those of us who love animals, they seem to be better at unconditional love. Knowing that they listen to a lot of our thoughts. I actually wrote an article about this. You come home and your animal is just dripping with adoration for you, and you may be in your mind thinking, I'm judging yourself, like, oh, I had such a bad day, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that, and whatever we're doing where we're not actually loving ourselves wholly. Our animal can hear that, and they can feel that, and they definitely, when you're feeling that way, they want to, you're like, they're feeling into you and wanting to know what's going on with you because they love you so much. And that look that they're giving you, that complete acceptance, that's them actively disagreeing with you about you judging yourself. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, I'm going to take a sip. All right. So for all of those reasons, animals and humans form a beautiful symbiosis. Animals are well equipped to be our spiritual guardians because of their remembrance, their understanding of divinity and eternity, and because they, generally speaking, I mean, I guess if you had, what's an animal that lives really long? Oh, yeah, if you have a sulcata tortoise, I don't know, they can live like 200 years, so maybe they're not gonna mature as quickly. Because they do develop exponentially to our lives. So they're really well equipped to be our spiritual guardians. And humans, we're in charge of being their physical guardians, and for 2 reasons. First, because what's obvious, we bring animals into our homes, we bring them into our culture, and we ask them to adapt to our culture and our environment, and we cut them off from their natural ability to fend for themselves. Okay, so obviously we are their physical guardians. I mean, they're happy about it when they live with us, but we're their physical guardians. They can be our spiritual guardians if we allow them to be. So what is important to note, though, is that humans, we affect this kind of intervention on a biological level, especially in the case of domesticized animals. So, for example, a biologically domesticated cat who's feral and living on the streets, he's biologically domesticated. That's a homeless cat. That's a neglected cat, just like a homeless human would be. So, and then second, the other reason why we have biologically intervened is we have this responsibility of physical guardianship, and it extends into wild nature. And that's because the human species seems to be able to exhibit the least kind of conscious behavior in regards to the ecosystem and the greater good. So what I mean by that is, even though, there are coyotes in Burbank, that's where I live, that I don't have a relationship with specifically, I do drive my car, and I, whatever other systems that I participate in or that we have created as humans impact their environment. And it's not just their environment, but we have intervened into their life. And this is just for example. So we are responsible for that. And they wouldn't do that because they would understand, for the most part, they understand that That is it's destroying everything, and we all live here. So I just say basically, in other words, pardon my French, humans are more commonly, we shit where we eat. Animals don't do that as much. When animals do something that's more aggressive to overtake something, it's usually because it's balancing something out. And that's just the truth. Okay, 45 minutes in. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. So let me tell you about my process, and then we will get to practicing or questions, whatever you guys want to do. Okay, so my process. Before connecting with the human, I connect with the animal one-on-one. This is how I do it. Other people just do it on the fly, and actually sometimes I do it on the fly when necessary. So I receive from the person. I'll ask them to email me the name, the age, and the age of the animal, how long they've been together, their gender, and some generalized questions. I feel like I needed to tell you. Oh no, it's coming up. That's right. Okay. And some generalized questions. I say generalized because, I don't want them to tell me a 3-page story, because the animal can tell me that. And when we have more room to explore and more room for the animal to bring through details to me that the human didn't tell me, then that is validating, just like when we do any other intuitive session. And the more that we're validated, the more everyone trusts that we're receiving the information from the animal. Okay, so the generalized questions would be like, if you wanted, well, I'll just tell you, like, recently I was speaking with my cat, and she doesn't like to come and sit on the couch with me, but she does walk around the house yowling for me to go sit on the floor with her. And so if I were to ask an animal communicator about that, I would say, how could we spend more time together? But I might even say, like, would she ever consider sitting on the couch with me? But I wouldn't tell her the whole story about the yowling and the everything, because, my cat might actually tell her that, and then that lets me know that she's actually receiving the information from my cat. All right. So I have the session with the animal one-on-one remotely, too. They will email me about it. I don't physically meet the animal. And that really works for me because I get to have this space. We get to meet. I don't need to be close to the animal in order to feel or hear them. And then I can have a more private session with them. I'm not picking up on the human. The human wouldn't be interrupting or kind of redirecting or, that kind of thing. I'm an empath too. So if I'm in a session with the human, if I start it with the human, then I could be, it could be a little, the person's energy could be a little stronger than the animals. You know what I mean? Like, they could be a little pushier. And so it'd be kind of hard for me to block them out or even just tell them, shush. So, and if I have that session with the animal first, and we speak and I transcribe the whole session, then when I am with the person, either, on the phone or in person, then I've practiced the vibration with the animal. We've gotten acquainted. So even if the person is a little chatty or, pushy, I can still, it's easier for me to tap into the animal because we already know each other well. I know what they feel like. So then I transcribe the conversation and I take notes. I do this in a deep meditation, or I would say moderately deep meditative state. I'm going to tell you, so that's how the overall is. So this is then how I actually go into it. So I meditate, and I kind of just do whatever my regular meditation is. And then I reach out to the animal. I have the photo. I always want a photo where I can clearly see the eyes. And the thing is, these are just things. Sometimes I have spoken with a feral animal. I've spoken with wild animals, and in ways where there's verifiable evidence of whatever information I picked up. But best case scenario, we want a picture where you can clearly see the eyes. That's fairly recent. So I meditate, and then I reach out to the animal. They know their name. They love their names, by the way. They love when we give them names, and they know their names. So I call out their name. I picture their face, and then for me, I just see them sort of appear and clairvoyantly walking toward me or something like that. And then I explain to them that their human has asked me to reach out to them. I'll say the human's name, they asked me, and then I ask their permission to communicate with them. All those things are really important. You don't want to just push in there and, just because you can, feel into them, you shouldn't do it without their permission. And then I actually start by asking them, answering any questions that they have, or just asking them what they want to talk about. I let them talk first. Sometimes when I do ask permission, I get all kinds of responses. One time I was speaking with this Labrador, and he's a very high-spirited animal, and I, asked him if we could talk, and said his family wanted to talk to him, and he was really excited about it. And he wouldn't talk for about 20 minutes. He wanted to play fetch with me, and it was like virtual fetch because we weren't together. It was just us in telepathic land, and he was like running around, and I was like, okay, we're gonna run around for a while. So we were just like, I was chasing him for a while, and then finally he relaxed, and then we talked. And I always start by saying, what are some of your favorite activities? What is it that you want to know? What do you want to tell me? And then then they'll start telling me things, and transcribe it. Sometimes when I approach an animal, they might be like nervous, like, oh, what are you doing here? Oh, why does she want to do that? Oh no, am I in trouble? Like sometimes they'll do that. And then other times I'll explain to an animal, your person, Susan or your mom wanted me to talk to you. And they'll be like, oh my God, that's so sweet of her. And they'll like cry because they think it's so sweet. I mean, all kinds of things. This is really cute. Sorry, I'm crying. Okay. So then I answer, and then I say, what questions do you have for me? I answered their questions. And then I just start to interview them on anything that they want to share. I like to ask them what their favorite activities are, their favorite toys, any friends that they have, stuff like that. And that's a way that we can get some, first of all, it makes them feel like really known. And then it's a way that we can get some of those facts that will help us to know later when I speak with a human that, we really do make the connection. And I actually will just kind of seek evidence. Some things that, I'm going to ask them about. I do usually anyway for the sake of, being able to get some good information. I ask them about their food, ask them about their water, or, all of that kind of stuff. Then I began asking them questions about what their human wants to know. All those questions that the human may have given me. Somewhere between, I'd say 3 and 7 or is the most that I ever get. So maybe 10, but yeah, 3 and 7. And then I asked them some other things, whether their human asked about it or not. I asked things like if they have, what their job is or their life purpose is, and if they're having satisfaction in that. That's actually really important to them. And then I'll ask them of their, like I said, their physical needs. I'll do like their food, water, their activity, their sleep. And then I'll do a body scan to see if we have any, concerns about the body, about the health. And then sometimes I will ask them if they want to share a past life memory, particularly if we have an issue that we're working on. Because sometimes I just get clients who just want to know as much as they can know and just have that deep connection. And sometimes it's, about a behavior issue, but and often what the life that they bring through is because it has something to do with what they're working on right now. And so it can be very helpful. And then I'll do some energy work if necessary. And sometimes with issues of behavior or something along those lines, the energy work really works. And I will kind of ask them what they need from their person. And I can kind of give them a prescription and give the human a prescription. It's like, spend some time connecting with your animal a few seconds a day, morning or night or something like that. Or let your animal know, because your animal has been really concerned about how stressed out you are and they're putting on weight. That's a fairly common thing. Let them know that when they're working with you and kind of siphoning that energy off of you, that they can release it, that they don't have to hang on to it. So I think that Jessica I just popped in on a reading that she was doing once, and she was like, she said something along the lines of the animal, and I can't remember if it was a dog or a cat, was sleeping next to the person in a particular area of the body, and that the animal wanted to do that for, like, it was helping him. And that is very common. And that most of the time animals tell me, like, if they're sleeping next to their head, or they're sleeping on their stomach, or just the other day a dog told me, I sit at daddy's feet, and that told me, and I asked, it was actually not the father that I was speaking with. I said, does he work really hard? And she was like, yep. And so that's what, the dog wanted to help him to transition from that hard day of work that he did every single day. That was his labor for his labor of love for his master. I don't really like the name master, but you know what I mean. And so then when I end, I always end with, is there anything else you want to know or anything else you want to tell me? And then, of course, I end with gratitude. And sometimes they leave me with these sweetest words. There was this cat once named Nalu, and he said to me, "Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this work. Please tell people that they can turn on this kind of communication, because when humans do learn this, Gaia will be a better place for everyone." That was really beautiful. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly how he said it. He was actually much more eloquent than I just was. So then the session with the person, that's the session with the animal, and the session with the human over the phone, or, sometimes I do it in person with them. I'll first start by explaining a few points about how telepathy works and what they can expect, and animals' perspective in general, like we did at the beginning of this class. And then I will just sort of touch base with the animal again and let them kind of oversee or, actively communicate with me during the session. I relay the notes and clarify the findings. And what I mean by clarify the findings is because, here's an example. One time I had this dog and I asked him what his favorite toy was. And I saw first a Kong, which is those toys or those things that you put treats inside. And the only kind of Kong I've ever seen was like shaped like a pyramid, because I don't have a dog right now. My friend's dog, they have the pyramid shaped ones. You put the treats inside, and then the dog's trying to get it out all day long. And I saw Kong, and then I saw a green bone, like a rubbery kind of green bone. And so that's just what I wrote down. It was like I asked him about his favorite toy, and I saw a Kong, and I saw a green bone. And the human said to me, his mom said, "Oh yeah, he used to have a green bone that was a Kong." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know they made bone-shaped Kongs." But, he showed me two pictures because he didn't really show me two pictures. He was communicating, and because my filter only understands a Kong and a green bone, I don't really understand them together. I got both, but they meant the one thing because, again, it's vibrational language. I mean, yeah, it's subtle language, but they can articulate our actual words, and it's really cool because one time this dog I was speaking with, he told me about his, by the way, before I proceed, about the mom and dad thing. They're fine with that. They don't care. And if you don't use mom and dad, that's fine too. They love anything that we love. That's really, if we love it when we call them, our child or something, if it feels like intimacy, then of course they love it. They would only feel it as diminutive if you meant it as diminutive. And I think it's very natural that we call them, we like to say mom and dad with them, because we have such an intimate relationship with them. I mean, who else? I like to be just out there. Who else will sit on your lap while you're going to the bathroom, right? I mean, even your spouse isn't going to do that. But you'll let your animal do that, hang out with you in the bathroom. So it's a very personal relationship. And, we the language that we have for that is like, your spouse or your life partner or your child, right? You guys are cracking up about that, right? I didn't say shit again. I only said that once so far. Maybe that's like the third time I've said it. So anyway, so that's what clarifying findings mean, is like, I thought I saw this, and, we're translating something very subtle, and then as the human's like, yeah, oh, this and that, and then I'll actually correct that in my transcript so that they can, and I'll put in parentheses, like, during our session, you clarified that it was a green bone Kong. Okay. And let's see. And then I prescribe any necessary energy work or behavioral practice that might help them improve their lives to whatever degree. Okay, so note, this is what I just explained is my process, and it's important for you to develop your own and what is right for you as an individual, because it's always, it's your fingerprint. All of this work that we do, what you do is specific to you. And actually, there's one more thing that I don't have. By the way, please, anyone who wants these notes, email me directly, triciacarcharm.com. If you go back to the post I did right before I started, my email address is in there, and you can email me directly. I'll send them to you. One thing I don't have in these notes is that the difference between speaking with an animal that is our family member and an animal that is not our family member. It is, if you have animals in your family, you are, and I'm certain all of you that are listening, and that you're here for this reason, you are communicating with your animals. You are. And it doesn't feel exactly the same as it does when we're communicating with animals that aren't our family. And here's the best example I just received recently about what that's like. Okay, everyone that's sitting there right now. Okay, you all sitting there paying attention? What does your right index finger feel like? Right? You're like, oh, okay. Oh, I have to think about it. Okay, now I got it. Yeah, right? So it takes you a second, right? Because it's so a part of your body. You're not like consciously we have to place our awareness on certain, like, what does my right knee feel like? Okay, now I can feel it. Now I can feel it. But you're walking around all day and your right knee is just doing its thing if it's not causing you any pain, and your right index finger is just doing its thing. That's what it's like with our animals. They're so a part of us that we are receiving so seamlessly, and we're just communicating back and forth. So if we want to be very specific and really hone in on a particular topic or question or something like that, it just kind of takes that little extra focus. And so the distinction there is that that's me trying to feel my right index finger, but if I walked up to you and put my right index finger anywhere on your person, you'd be like, okay, that's a different right index finger and it's touching me, right? So if I'm speaking with an animal that isn't mine, isn't my family, their vibration feels new, feels different. So it's kind of, in a way, easier to specify it, to place my awareness on it because it's brand new. So with your own animals, it just takes a little extra, it takes practice, a different kind of practice, and a little extra focus. And you still want to, if you're going to do that extra focus like that, you still want to ask their permission because you're kind of feeling into them in a more direct way. It's like, if you don't want to surprise someone, or you don't want to disturb them if you're like, in their business. So you still just say, hey, honey, can I ask you something? That's basically what it feels like. Okay, so additional points, and that's something we'll go about more in detail in another class or something. But that's why when you're developing this gift, it's really good to practice with someone else's animal because, there's discovery because you don't know that animal. And, it's easy if you just learn something very simple about my animal. If you tell me something very simple about my animal you didn't know, you probably didn't know that about your own animal. So practicing with other people's animals is how we kind of develop the feel for it. But I wanted to give you just a couple of points of how other people communicate. So there is a woman named Lydia Hibby that is a really great animal communicator, and her process is totally different than what I just did. Her process is you just call her and she talks to you for 15 minutes. And if you send her a picture in advance, that's great. But if you haven't had a chance to, you can explain your animal. And I can do that too. You can kind of explain, give me identifying, explain to me what the animal looks like. He's a tuxedo cat and he has green eyes and he's 8 and his name is, Tom, and, that kind of stuff. It can help me. And then I really do need the human to participate because I need to make sure I have the right Tom or the right guy. And then, it starts to flow. So that's what she does. She's a former vet tech, so she's a lot about behavior and a lot about physical stuff, and that's great. And then there's another woman named Kate Kofelt, and she's actually going to be on my show by the Charmed Life on Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific. Please call in this Sunday for a reading if you would like. You can find it on my face. Everybody add me on Facebook if you want to watch my show or call in for those readings or something on my show on my YouTube channel and stuff. Anyway, Kate. She just does, just like she does any other reading, like, you just book a session with her and then, she doesn't do the session one-on-one in advance. She doesn't write it out. She just does the reading straight then and there. Let's see. I had a couple of other additional points. Sometimes, there is a radical shift in the animal by just connecting. So sometimes just, if there's a behavior issue and I just spoke with the animal the one time, then I speak with the human and they're like, oh my gosh, somehow everything changed. Like my neighbor, I was starting to work with her dogs and I was doing a session for a couple of days before I even got to talk to her about it. And she's like, ever since you said you were going to talk to her, she stopped doing it. And sometimes just that awareness, and they feel heard, and it helps them to relax, and it helps them. And I also, because they get to, I explain some things to them, and it just helps them to feel more connected and heard. And then there's this whole point, another point I want to bring up is balancing objectivity while engaging in empathy. And that's, I mean, we have to do that as, you know, with our psychic intuitive work anyway. It's tricky because we need to be open and we need to be empathic, but at the same time we need to be objective. And so we just have to, I just wanted to bring that up. That is a delicate balance to be in. And then also to have objectivity with your own animals or an animal with whom you are emotionally involved, that can be difficult. So if there's an issue, if there's something that's concerning with my own animals, if it's, you know, health or something along those lines, and by the way, none of this, just like everything else, this is not a replacement for medical help, blah, blah, blah. But if there's something behavioral or emotional or physical or something like that's an issue, I will ask a friend to intervene. I'll ask a friend to talk to my animal because I'm concerned about my own objectivity. Or if it's like someone that I know, let's say it's my friend's animal, and I'm kind of being judgy. I'm thinking like they're not treating their animal right. You know, I need to have my friend step in. And I do have a couple of friends that I can do that with. And then the last note I already mentioned once is that fear and grief interferes with our connection, just like it does with, you know, with our other readings. So that's what I have for the class. Thank you guys. It was kind of a long class, an hour. Whew, it was an overview, but I do have a 201 class set up and everything. And maybe we'll do that down the line. But I'm prepared to show you some of my animals' pictures and to see if you guys want to practice, or I will just answer questions. I'm going to move this over because we don't really need that anymore. Okay. So let's see. Nancy says all better. Was there something wrong? Okay, by the way, I am going to go back and look through the comments, and this might take me a little time and answer all the questions. Ming, Fluffy, and TT are my family friends. Okay, so no one's that I can see right now asking a specific question, so I'm going to put up a picture of my kitty. Can animals be a part of our soul family, or do they pass and come back to us again? Animals are a part of our soul family, 100%. And yes, they do all of that. So Alicia's question is, can animals be a part of our soul family? Do they pass on and come back to us again? 100%. So I will be, when an animal passes, sometimes in a session where I'm speaking with, oh, by the way, that was mostly about animals in the body. Animals in the spirit realm, you know, I guess it's really not much different, really, than it is the difference between people here and people in the spirit realm. I guess that there's a deeper healing than it is for animals. But, you know, they're not going to be fearful. They're going to have a greater perspective. And yes, by the way, Alicia asked that. So my animals that are in the spirit realm, they actually like to help me with my work. And especially, like, kind of particularly, they'll help me with animals that when I'm dealing with a lost animal, they can really help me. And they can go and like kind of be a guide to an animal that I'm trying to help and encourage them. So it's pretty cool. Animals, generally speaking, want to cross over faster than humans. There are fewer animal ghosts, but there definitely are animal ghosts. I had one in my house not too long ago. It was some kind of a badgery thing, and it scared the hell out of my cat. Crossed him over. It was fine. I had an animal, two dogs, and I was speaking with the one dog had passed and one dog was still present. And I was speaking with the present one, and the dog that was present was telling me he's still here. He hasn't crossed over. And so in that session, you know, I talked to the one who was passed, and he was like, yeah, I'm afraid to leave them. And he'd been gone for like a couple of months, as I remember, 2 or 3 months. And so I just explained to him it was okay to cross over, and that he could be a stronger guide for them. He could come back, just like we do with, you know, human ghosts. And he crossed over during the session. It was amazing. All right, another question. Thank you, Julie. Julie has a cat that is 20. Oh, you're so lucky. Congratulations. And what a great mom you must be. You're welcome, Alicia. So Nancy says, I asked this question before, but when I chant, my cat looks at me and asks me, who are you letting in? And then runs away, and my frightening her even though, oh, am I frightening her even though I'm telling her I'm going to chant before I chant? Okay, so the other thing that it could be, Nancy, and I think I may be getting this a little intuitively, is just that it's kind of overwhelming for her. Just the sounds itself, you know, it's like, and by the way, because we are so much noisier than they are, right? I mean, they don't, I mean, I guess Siamese cats, they meow a lot and dogs kind of bark a lot, but we are so noisy. We're making dishes and, you know, so I feel like maybe she just doesn't enjoy it as an activity. I think that if you're not scared about who you're letting in, that she's not going to be scared. And of course, she can have her own opinion, and it could be, you know, like, why are you doing that? You know, so that's just what I would say. Maybe just tell her, hey, honey, I'm getting, like, picture in your mind, mommy's going to do this now, make a lot of noise, okay? And, you know, she can choose to go away or stay or whatever, but let her know in advance. I think that she just kind of was like, it's not her thing. Let's see. Julie says, we had a kitty ghost my cat played with a month ago. I saw the kitty all as white and never had that happen before. That's so cool. Oh, yeah. So, and do you think he was a ghost and he wasn't one that was like had crossed over? You know, it was basically, it could be a spirit, or do you think he was a ghost? Let's see. Nikki says, do you think animals reincarnate as humans sometimes? Yeah, definitely. We all can reincarnate as all kinds of things. And like I said, the reason that from the perspective that we are in this incarnate life, that we may mostly remember our human lives, or the cats may mostly remember their cat lives or their cat-like lives, that could be because that's what's most relevant in this moment. Yeah, but definitely, sure. But with also, I often get told, like, you know, an animal will be like, I'm sticking with cat for a while, or at least next time, or, you know, I like being a cat. I don't really want to come back as a dog or, you know, a fish or something. And again, that's because that may be what you're working on right now. That's the place in your karmic development that you're in, or I don't know, you know, maybe some of us just get really stuck, and maybe some of us really like to be diverse. I do get animals often telling me about Lemuria and Atlantis. And I think, again, that's usually when I'm working with animals of humans that are intuitive and, you know, really magical. They want to remind the human of their magic. You're not sure, Julie? Yeah. I guess you could ask the animal, if she came back. Okay. Anne Michelle says, I swear my new doggy, he's an old Jewish man named Saul. Yeah, ask him. That sounds awesome. That's cute. Maybe it's his first time being a dog, or at least first time in a long time. Julie says, ghost kitty didn't feel heavy or off. It was just hanging out. So if he didn't feel heavy, if he didn't feel dense, then, I mean, he probably was a spirit kitty. Yeah. Isn't that nice? But in the meantime, let's see if anybody wants to give a shot at reading my little one. Oh, look at her. This is Delilah. Delilah is 3. Okay, wait. Nikki says, I was feeling very close to my dog one night, and I invited her to be human the next time she's around. I think she missed next time around part because she started acting like a human right away. That's hilarious. Okay, who wants to try this? This is Delilah. She is 3. We have been together since she was like 11 weeks old. So I'm going to leave her up there and see if anybody wants to try to pick up anything about her. You can just ask her permission. Yeah, I'm trying to get the glare off of her. Ask her permission to connect. And then just ask her, let's see, why don't you guys ask her about her food? What kind of food she eats, what kind of food she likes. I'm just going to leave this up and see if any other questions or anybody else wants to. You can ask her, food's a good one. I kind of already told you about an activity that she does. Hi, Sandra just joined. Sandra, we are reading my kitty. Her name is Delilah. She's 3. And I thought maybe you guys just want to ask her what kind of food she likes or what kind of food she eats. So while I'm waiting for some responses, I will just tell you again, I have a show called Charmed Life, and it's a live broadcast every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific. You can watch it live by just liking me on Facebook or liking my my Facebook profile for my, like my company, which is Tricia Carr Charm. It's like facebook.com/Tricia Carr Charm. And Julie says crunchy or dry, and she's right. She's right. Good job, Julie. No, yeah. Is she into feathers? Okay, Julie, you're on fire. I have 2 birds. And so, well, there's a couple of reasons why she would be into feathers. I have 2 birds, and so they love to go and roll around in the feathers that fall on the floor. And then we also, the toys, the wand toys that we have for them, they have feathers on them. And unfortunately, Delilah was kind of munching on them and got herself sick, so I had to put it away. But I feed them pate type food as well and raw food. And Delilah hardly eats it. She's very finicky. She mostly only eats her dry food. And she doesn't eat in front of me. So I'm not even positive because she's very particular about that too. She won't eat in front of me. Great job, Julie. All right. So I'm going to switch to another kitty and let you guys see what's going on with him. Okay. This is Franzi. Franzi is a male, and he is 5 years old, and we've been together since he was about 3 months old. We've been together most of his life. Let me see. What question you could, okay, ask Franzi what some of his favorite activities are. Or anything you want, but that's just a suggestion. Oh, Alicia, you said first I thought Al. She's wise. Alicia, she's ridiculously wise. Oh my gosh, about Delilah. So great job. Fish, she does sometimes. Yes, you're right about that as well, because every now and again she gets fishy. She gets tuna juice. So yeah, Nikki, ham. That's I can see why you'd think that, because sometimes she does eat the wet food. It's not ham, but it is meat, and so I could see that it would, if you're picking up kind of the scent or trying to translate what she's sniffing, that it would seem like ham. He is very distinguished. He's very fancy. I mean, he's wearing a tuxedo all the time. What are you going to do? So like I was saying, it says, oh, he. Julie says she gets a low voice. Is his human voice low? You mean like, is Franzi's voice low? It is on the lower side. And you know why I think you're getting that is because compared to his brother, it is, and his sister, it is low. He's more of a meow kind of thing. So yeah. And then also the thing that you might be picking up, because he's very close to my husband. So that might be what you're picking up on. Great job, Julie. You guys, my show this Sunday, like I said, it's 11 a.m. Pacific, and I have medium Hillary Michaels on, and we're going to be doing free readings, and I would love for anyone to call in and get some readings. And I'll do an animal reading on that show too, okay? Or mediumship or whatever. Anyone else? This is Franzi. Anybody else want to take a read at Franzi? Playing in the garden. He is the man of the house. He's pretty bossy. And he's, like I said, best friends with my husband, who's clearly the man of the house. Very good, Alicia. Julie says she laughed because she thought Franzi's voice kind of sounded like Barry White. Yeah, he thinks he's pretty cool. I mean, he is pretty cool. Okay, Nancy says this cat seems to know what he wants. Oh, no kidding. Absolutely, Nancy. And he doesn't really care if you agree with him or not. He's not mean, but he'll just, if he wants to sit somewhere, he'll just go sit there. And if you're underneath him, well, that's fine with him. He doesn't care. Brian says, my phone is going to die and I'm going to, oh, thank you, Brian. Lovely. So thank you so much for joining us, and call in the show, and maybe we can talk to was it a doggy? I already forgot. Okay. Julie says, is he a mouse kind of guy? He plays fetch with little mousy shaped toys. So, and which is something he taught us. He would throw the mousy toy down the hallway and he brings it back and drops it at your feet. So yes, he is definitely a mousy guy. Yeah, you're doing so well, Julie. Look at you. And Julie, did we have a little conversation because you thought that you felt frustrated because you didn't speak with your own animals very clearly? Well, hopefully what we talked about feeling your own animals and, you know, how it's different will make you feel more confident, because you're obviously really good at this. Hi, Nightingale. We're reading my kitty. Does he like playing chase and playing with strings? He does love playing chase. He chases his brother and sister. Strings, yeah, I think yes. Oh, you know what? You're right. When I have on a hoodie or something and I bend down, then yeah, he tries to grab my strings of my hoodie. So yes, very good. Great job, Nightingale. How much time do we have? We have a few more minutes. So let's see. I'm gonna show you one more kitty, and then, you know, stay here until you guys, you know, if you have any more questions, we can stay on for the full time. Now, this is a really funny picture of Barnabas. Okay, he loves to sit in the window. Yes, and Michelle, we have huge windows, as you can see behind me. And yes, and I mean, there's all kinds of windows. He's always sitting in the window. It's like, you know, kitty TV. So good job. Julie says, I talk to cats all the time. Just struggle to always understand what they have to say. Yeah, it just takes some practice. But you're doing great. Okay, so this is Barnabas. And like I said, it's a funny picture of him yawning, but he likes it. And he is 3, and we've been together since he was about 4 months old, you know, most of his life. Let's see if you guys have any. I know it takes a little bit of a lag between the feet and the feed. Barnabas, my sweet boy. I actually probably could bring a kitty up to the actual camera. They're all around here. Okay. Alicia says, Joker, playful, lots of energy. Yes, he does have a lot of energy. He's very, very fit. We actually say he's kind of like a ninja. He's so athletic. It's hilarious. He is very playful, very sweet. He is very, and he does have, so this is the thing about Barnabas. He's, Nancy says, wildcat and loves to play. We always say that he's like, I mean, he could do anything he wanted, like, but he's such a good person. He's very frisky. Does he shake his whole body sometimes? Yeah, because he's very fit and very taut. Yes, Nikki, you're right. He's into birds. Yes, he's a chatter at the window, hunter through the window. Yeah, he does that a lot, probably. And he also, because I have 2 birds, he likes to be a little annoying to the birds that, you know, live with us sometimes. He likes to lay on the back and swat the air. Yeah, definitely. He does that when oh yeah, he likes to lie on his back in the sun and then have you scratch his belly, and then he'll kind of like put his feet against your hand and then kick himself off. So yeah, I think that's it. Younger soul, immature, of the bunch of cats. I would say he's about a medium old soul. He's really, but I know what you mean, especially in comparison, because like Delilah, I think, is a lot older soul, and she's younger than he is. So yes, Alicia, I understand why you would pick that up. He's a very good person, though. That's what we always say about Barnabas. He's a really good person. He's so sweet, and he's actually, he's the most clairvoyant. At least he exhibits the most clairvoyance of my cats. He's the one who's always seeing things at the same time as I am, and I don't know if that could be just incidental because my other cats don't care, or because they're just not in the same place when this stuff happens. Yes, he does. He loves having his photo taken. Julie says he's a ham. He loves getting his photo taken. And actually, for this photo, I was sending a picture because it was Halloween last year. He has a great sense of humor. And I was sending it. I was like, hey, Barnabas, can I take a picture for me to send to my friend Amanda? And he made that face. And it was Halloween. And I was like, this is not a scary Halloween kitty. He loves posing for pictures. We put like little kitty scarves on him, and he loves them. He'll wear them until they fall off. He's hilarious. He loves his name. He does love his name. I know, because he thinks it's very regal and kind of fancy and all that kind of stuff. How much time we have? 5 more minutes. Anybody else have anything about Barnabas? Thank you, Anne Michelle, for saying he loves his name. How does he feel about his brother and sister? Does anybody want to ask him that? Salem cat. That makes sense. Alicia says he's a Salem cat. And you see, I don't know if you can tell, he's got this little white spot right there, like a little priest collar. He's so sweet. He's my sweetheart. He's very much a healer, too. Yeah, black cats. And, you know, Julie says her black cat is 20 years old. His brother is bossy. Yes, Anne Michelle, you're right. His brother is bossy. He loves them, but they don't want to play with him all the time. Like, he wants to play with them as much as he does, Nancy says. Yes, and that's especially with Delilah. Delilah likes to spend a lot of her time on her own. Delilah, because like I've said, she's an older soul, so she really likes to spend most of the day meditating and doing inner work. And so, by the way, I didn't mention this earlier, that, you know, our animals have spiritual practices like us. I think a lot of times with dogs and cats, when we think that we think they're sleeping, but they're actually meditating or praying. A lot of those times. Alicia says that not enough energy to keep up with the rest. Barnabas doesn't have enough energy to keep up with the rest, or they don't. I'm not really sure. The other way around. Oh, okay. They don't have enough energy to keep up with him. He is, so that makes sense. So Delilah, I think, is just reluctant. Franzi has got like 4 pounds on him, and he's, you know, Franzi's very athletic too, but Barnabas is like this slim little ninja running back. And yeah, he could probably run all day, and Franzi's like, dude, I'm huge. So yeah, good job. Cats sleep 20 hours a day, 10 meditating, 10 sleep. Or what my cat does. Yeah, that makes sense. Exactly. A lot of it is meditating. Okay, well, I think our time is about up. And everyone just tell Barnabas, Delilah, and Franzi thank you for letting you feel into them. And I want to say thank you to you guys. Alicia says, oh my, they meditate. Yes, they do. They do. They meditate. And I really appreciate all of you. I love you all very much. Again, my website is Tricia Carr Charm. My email address is triciacarcharm@gmail.com. And go like me on Facebook, and then you can stay in touch for when I'm doing my show, which I said, you know, you guys can call in for readings and stuff like that. And, you know, I have a YouTube channel with all of the backlog of the web show and podcast stuff. So thank you to everyone for being here as brothers and sisters together. I love you, whoever you are.